He's not allowed in this pool. Rentals don't get privileges. Miranda's voice sliced through the humid air as she yanked the child upward by her hair. Tiles screeched against tiny toes, while water splashed like panic. The girl gasped, arms flailing, trapped between chlorine burn and a stranger's grip. Nobody rushed in. Nobody shouted stop. Sunglasses lowered, not hands. They watched a punishment disguised as rules while she screamed underwater. But the parent on the pool deck didn't panic. He memorized the scene, the angle of Miranda's arm, the security camera's blinking red eye, the neighbors' frozen stares. What looked like chaos to them was documentation to him. Because this wasn't a fight he needed to win today. It was evidence he would use tomorrow. By the way, where are you watching from? Tell me in the comments below. This isn't about a pool rule. It's about who holds power and who shouldn't. He stepped forward only when Miranda released the girl, letting her collapse into waiting arms. He whispered calm instead of rage, smoothing wet hair away from bleeding scalp. The child cried into his chest, heart pounding like war drums, but he kept his heartbeat steady for her sake. He wasn't here to shout. He was here to remember. Miranda rolled her eyes and strutted back to her lounge chair as if she'd removed trash from her perfect pool, not nearly scalped a child. Elias held Lily close, lifting her out of sight from the gawkers, who now pretended they hadn't seen anything. His voice was low, steady, controlled, the kind of voice that promised safety even when the world turned cruel. Lily clung tighter. He adjusted his grip and began walking toward their section of the pool deck, refusing to give Miranda the satisfaction of seeing tears a second longer. It wasn't the first time Miranda tried to make them feel small. From the day they moved into Lakeside Grove, she'd sneered at the mention of Unit 14, the only rental allowed inside a community built on designer lawns and self-importance, a place where owning mattered more than being human. But they moved here because the pool wasn't a luxury. It was Lily's therapy. Warm water soothed her injured muscles better than any medicine ever did, and Elias carved out every shift he could to afford their home here, because her healing mattered more than his pride. He could work 3 jobs if he had to. He would never let anything block her recovery, not even the woman currently pretending the assault never happened. As he laid a towel over Lily's shoulders, his eyes scanned every corner of the pool, every camera, every witness. He mentally logged names, timestamps, vantage points, the positioning of Miranda's manicured hands in Lily's hair. Details that mattered, details that authorities couldn't ignore. Officer Dana, posted near the gate, glanced over but didn't move from her spot. That was Lakeside Grove law. The board's word first, common sense somewhere far behind. Miranda lifted her phone, already typing something smug into their community chat about unauthorized use. Elias didn't approach her. He didn't snap back. He didn't show that his blood was boiling. He just watched, and Miranda mistook silence for weakness. He knew better than anyone how people like her fell, not from being confronted, from being caught. He crouched beside Lily, carefully inspecting the swelling beneath her damp hair. She sniffled, trying to stay brave for him. "It's okay," he murmured. "You're safe. I've got you." And he had more than just her. He had proof. He had motive. He had patience. The perfect ingredients for justice. Slowly he guided her toward the exit, passing clusters of neighbors who now found sudden interest in their phones or sandals. None offered help. None spoke. They valued pool rules above a child's pain. The sun hit Lily's face as they stepped outside, and she winced. Elias shifted her gently so her eyes stayed shielded. He scanned the street, luxury SUVs glinting in driveways, pristine hedges cut to HOA-approved precision, fake smiles pasted on fake civility. Lakeside Grove wanted perfect appearances, and Miranda ensured that any imperfection was scrubbed away. But what she didn't know was that Elias had once worked in places where the wealthiest appeared the cleanest, right before the fall. He'd spent years tracing dirt hidden in bank accounts, peeling back glossy surfaces to reveal rot underneath. He dismantled empires of fraud built by people who thought they were untouchable. Miranda had no idea she'd just handed her worst enemy the reason to expose her. Tonight, he wouldn't sleep. Tonight, he'd begin, with relentless precision and quiet fury, absolutely. Not because he sought revenge, because his daughter deserved a life where nobody ever laid a hand on her again. Elias carried Lily through the clubhouse exit and along the hot concrete path toward their unit. The sound of splashing faded behind them, replaced by the sharp clicks of Miranda's sandals as she strutted toward the parking lot, already celebrating her petty victory. He kept his eyes forward, but he didn't forget details, not a single one. The pressure of Lily's small hands against his shirt felt like the only thing anchoring him to the ground instead of the rage coiled inside his ribs. He reached their rental door and nudged it open with his shoulder. The moment they stepped inside, the air changed. No watchers, no judges, no one pretending not to see. Just the hum of the old refrigerator and the soft drip from Lily's wet hair falling to the welcome mat. Elias set her down gently, wrapping another towel around her shoulders before crouching to meet her eyes. "You did nothing wrong," he said quietly. Lily nodded, lips trembling, trying so hard to be strong. The bravery in her eyes was bigger than the injury, bigger than this neighborhood, bigger than every smug glance, every whispered judgment. But bravery still hurt. He guided her to the bathroom, letting the steam from the faucet soften the tension in her shoulders. He examined the spot where Miranda's nails had dug into her scalp. Blood was drying in thin lines. He cleaned it slowly, letting her lean into his steady touch. Lily didn't speak until the sting dulled. "Dad, why did she do that?" she whispered. Elias paused. Truth mattered, but timing mattered more. "Because some people think rules make them powerful," he said, "and they forget about the people those rules hurt." Her eyes filled again, not with fear this time, but confusion rooted in innocence. He brushed her hair aside gently, mindful not to trigger fresh pain. "Will she come back?" Lily asked. "If she does," he promised, "she won't touch you again." He wrapped a bandage around the tender spot. Lily watched him with heavy eyelids, exhaustion pulling at her. He lifted her, carrying her to the living room couch, then tucked a soft blanket around her. She curled into it, eyes half closed, still processing the cruelty she had just experienced. When her breathing steadied, Elias stood and looked out their front window. Miranda was already laughing beside Officer Dana. He could read their lips from here. Renters don't belong. Trouble family. She overreacted. Dana nodded like someone who didn't want to get between wealth and authority. Elias's jaw tightened, but he stepped away from the window before anger could cloud the calm he needed. In the kitchen, he pulled his phone from his pocket, not to call Miranda, not to confront the officer, not to broadcast what happened. He opened his secure work app, his fingers typed with fluency, muscle memory kicking in like he'd never left the office. Subject: urgent. HOA: incident escalation assisting civil investigation. He attached notes he'd quietly gathered since moving in. Missing landscaping invoices, inflated security contracts, HOA dues disproportionate to facility conditions, Greg Rafferty's signature on every irregular transaction. Tonight added a critical new piece: probable cause. His thumbs didn't shake once. He saved the draft. Not yet. Not until proof had weight. Tonight, he'd gather names of witnesses, timestamps of the cameras, exact HOA rule citations Miranda twisted into weapons. The file wouldn't just describe a crime, it would describe a pattern. A knock interrupted him, sharp, impatient. Elias inhaled once and opened the door. Officer Dana stood on the porch, eyes avoiding his. Miranda hovered behind her like a queen expecting her knight to deliver obedience. "I need to see Lily," Dana said. Elias didn't flinch. "She's resting." Dana shifted her stance. "HOA president has authority to enforce pool safety. You escalated the situation by interfering." His silence deepened, growing heavier. "She was being dragged," he finally said, "by her hair." "Still," Miranda chimed in, folding her arms. "You caused a disruption, and since unit renters don't have the same recreational privileges—" "Then revoke our access," Elias interrupted, tone soft as ice. Both women blinked. They expected pleading. They expected outrage. They expected the powerless to act powerless. He stepped closer, just enough to take the conversational space. "You think this ends with a pool argument," he said. "It doesn't." That landed. Miranda stiffened, eyes narrowing. Officer Dana cleared her throat, uncomfortable. "We'll note the incident," Dana muttered, already retreating. Miranda followed with a huff, unsatisfied that humiliation didn't stick the way she wanted it to. When the door shut, Lily's small voice floated from the couch. Was she still angry? Elias turned, softening instantly. She always will be, he said, when someone like her meets someone who won't bow. He sat beside her. She reached for his hand, and he held it like a promise. In the quiet, Elias's mind returned to the cameras around the pool, the footage, the witnesses, the medical record he would request tomorrow, that draft email waiting for the final piece, and the board's finances. Oh, the places those numbers already told him to look. He wasn't just documenting an attack. He was uncovering corruption. He checked Lily's bandage again, making sure no fresh blood seeped through. Her eyelids slipped shut, exhaustion finally winning. Elias brushed her cheek once, memorizing strength where there should have only been fragility. Then he stood, returned to the kitchen, and set his phone down on the table beside a notebook. Page 1 already had names. Page 2 would have bank accounts. By sunrise, he promised himself this: Miranda would regret ever touching his child. He closed the notebook, looked once more at Lily, curled safely under her blanket, and began the real work. Elias didn't sleep that night. When Lily finally drifted into a deep, dreamless rest, he dimmed the lights and opened his laptop. He pulled up every file he'd been quietly collecting since they moved into Lakeside Grove 4 months ago. At first, he'd suspected simple mismanagement. HOA boards often skimmed off the top, shifting fees around to pay for a new golf cart or a private landscaping deal with a cousin. Nothing new, nothing shocking. But the deeper he dug, the more the numbers screamed something bigger. And now, after what happened to Lily, everything sharpened into purpose. He arranged the documents side by side. Monthly dues, high; amenity upgrades, low; security spending, missing; landscaping contracts, repetitive, vague, unsigned digitally; and every suspicious transaction tied back, like a spider web, to the same 2 names: Greg and Miranda Rafferty. Elias took notes in calm, precise bullet points. No emotion, just truth. Rage only made proof. Sloppy and proof was his real weapon. He pulled out Lily's swim wristband, the one Miranda mocked repeatedly, a simple rubber band with the Lakeside Grove logo. Elias rotated it in his fingers. That band represented Lily's right to exist here, to heal here. It was her access card to recovery, and Miranda tried to rip it off along with her dignity. He placed it beside the computer, right next to his notebook. Both would matter. At dawn, Lily stirred and blinked toward him. The swelling on her scalp made his chest tighten. She tried to smile anyway. "Morning," she whispered. "Good morning," he replied gently. He helped her sit up, gave her warm cocoa, and made pancakes shaped like little suns. She giggled when the syrup accidentally ran into a smiley face. That sound, the tiny brave laugh, was life to him. After breakfast, he wrapped her hair loosely to avoid pain and slipped her sneakers on. They headed for the car. "Are we going back to the pool?" she asked, voice shaking. "Not yet," he said softly. "First, we see a doctor." Her shoulders eased. Doctors made things official, legal, recorded. At the urgent care clinic, a nurse gasped quietly when Lily's bandage came off. Elias didn't have to exaggerate anything. The wound was loud enough. Photos were taken. Measurements were recorded. The nurse circled areas of swelling with a marker. Every stroke felt like reinforcement, like the universe acknowledging that what happened at the pool wasn't minor, wasn't exaggerated, wasn't imaginary. The doctor asked for the story, and Elias described it with concise detail, every detail matching what he had already noted. He was careful with his words, not dramatic, not vague, not unsure, facts with timestamps. When he finished, the doctor looked disturbed. "Children don't get dragged like that over rules," she muttered. "This will go in her medical report, and I'll forward it to mandated channels." Elias nodded once. "Thank you." His tone held gratitude, but also resolve. Before leaving, he took copies of everything, hard copies for his file, digital copies for his case. He made sure Lily didn't see his hands clench when he slipped them into his folder. Back in the car, Lily leaned her head against the seat carefully. "Can we go home?" she asked, sounding smaller than she ever liked to be. "Almost," Elias said. "One stop first." He drove back toward the community gate. ignoring the knot of judgment already waiting in his stomach. He parked near the clubhouse, where the HOA office overlooked the pool. Morning sun glinted off the water, sparkling like something innocent. Elias held Lily's hand and walked inside. Not timidly, not submissively. Steady. Officer Dana sat behind the check-in desk, typing reports with the indifference of someone who thought yesterday didn't matter. When she saw them, she stiffened slightly. Guilt had a way of making people look busy. Elias spoke first. "I need copies of the pool camera footage from yesterday. The community has a right to access security logs involving a safety incident." Dana hesitated. "Security logs are restricted to board review only. The president hasn't approved." "That's fine," Elias cut in smoothly. "I'll note that in my report too." Her eyebrows lifted. "Report?" But he didn't elaborate. Instead, he placed a formal incident document, the one from urgent care, on the desk. The sight of medical certification made Dana's confidence crack just a bit. She took the paper, scanned the details, and exhaled. "Let me find what I can." She stood quickly, leaving the desk unattended. Miranda wasn't here, which made honesty easier. Lily squeezed his hand, and he squeezed back. "You okay?" he murmured. She nodded, though her jaw trembled. Minutes later, Dana returned with a USB drive and a nervous expression. "This is the public angle only. The rest requires board permission, but there was audio. You should have what you need." Elias accepted the drive without smile or insult. Neutrality, power disguised as calm. He thanked Dana. She looked relieved, as though choosing the right side finally felt easier. Outside, Lily paused to look at the pool from a distance. Fear flickered behind her eyes. He crouched to meet her gaze. "That place doesn't get to scare you forever," he said gently. She swallowed. "Will it stop hurting?" "It will," he promised. "And one day, you'll jump back in like you used to." Lily held that thought like a fragile treasure. They walked to the car again, and once Lily settled in, Elias unlocked his secure app and added today's evidence. Surveillance footage, acquired medical report, acquired witness authority, building. Every line moved the scale, every piece added weight. He glanced up at the clubhouse, imagining Miranda's certainty, her belief that rules made her untouchable. She thought she'd crushed a renter family. She had only awakened an investigator. Elias buckled Lily's seatbelt and started the engine, eyes straight ahead. She hurt his daughter. He would dismantle her world. Elias drove Lily home, keeping one hand on the wheel and the other resting gently on her knee whenever they stopped at a light. The silence between them wasn't awkward. It was protective. She stared out the window, thumb tracing the fabric of her sleeve, trying to make sense of a world that had suddenly shown her its sharp side. He let her process. Kids deserve room to understand their own fear. He'd take care of the monster behind it. When they pulled into their parking space, Miranda's silver SUV was already there. Of course. She stood near the clubhouse entrance, arms folded like a queen awaiting tribute, designer sunglasses hiding her eyes. Her lips curled into a smirk the moment she spotted their car. She waved Officer Dana over. Dana hesitated, just a flicker, but followed. Miranda walked toward them as if the street belonged to her. "I heard you're bothering staff for private footage," she called out. "That's not how things work here." Elias stepped out of the car before Lily could absorb the hostility. He positioned himself between the door and Miranda's line of sight. He kept his tone level. "If the footage is so harmless," he said, "why be worried about me having it?" Miranda's jaw twitched. "Because renters don't get to make demands." Dana cleared her throat, uncertain. Miranda shot her a glare sharp enough to silence. "We have rules in Lakeside Grove," Miranda continued. "Proper residents respect them. They don't go tattling to doctors or police when they don't get special treatment." Elias stared at her, not angry, just studying. She hated that the most, being examined by someone she assumed she outclassed. "You injured a child," he said calmly. Miranda scoffed. "I stopped a rule breaker. Your daughter tried to swim without proper authorization." "Authorization!" He stepped closer, voice like a quiet blade. "She had her band on. You ripped it off while you ripped her hair out." Dana's stomach visibly dropped. Miranda's shoulders stiffened. Elias didn't blink. "Drop the Entitlement Act," Miranda snapped. "You live here because the HOA tolerated you. Don't push your luck." He tilted his head slightly. "You still think this is about luck?" Miranda opened her mouth again, likely to deliver another insult wrapped in regulations. But Elias turned away before she could. He didn't offer her the respect of listening. He opened Lily's door and lifted her gently into his arms. He didn't look back. That was what truly unsettled Miranda. Inside their home, Lily went straight to the couch again, curling up with her blanket like the world might be safer if she made herself smaller. Elias tucked her in. "I'll be right here," he said. She nodded, eyes closing with the trust she still held in the one person who never failed her. He returned to his notebook, flipping to a page where he had already listed board meeting dates, dues increases, and suspicious vendor names. He added a new line: "Board confrontation witnessed. HOA retaliation ongoing." He clicked open the USB footage Dana had given him. The video loaded, the pool, clear morning sunlight, Lily splashing happily, Miranda rising from her chair like a predator. When the assault played out in front of his eyes, his fists clenched hard enough that his knuckles went white. But still, no outburst, no yelling, just focus. He paused the footage at Lily's scream, pitchy and heart-ripping. Elias zoomed in on Miranda's hand-gripping hair, fingers tight like talons. For a moment, he forced himself to breathe. He saved the frame. Evidence wasn't useful if your hands shook while handling it. A notification chimed on his laptop. HOA community message alert. He clicked it open. Miranda, President. Reminder, pool hours are for authorized homeowners. Violations will result in penalties, including access suspension. A photo was attached, Unit 14's wristband thrown into the trash. Elias stared at the screen, the message turning his calm into something colder. He typed nothing. He didn't need to respond there. His response would be delivered in handcuffs. Hers, not his. Lily's quiet breathing behind him kept him centered. He saved Miranda's message as well. Screenshots, timestamps, documentation, pieces of a puzzle, building not just a criminal case, but a portrait of who she really was. Later in the afternoon, he took Lily to sit outside for fresh air. The pool gate clanged behind them, laughter echoing from the water where other children swam freely. Lily looked at them, then at her own hands, like she was questioning whether she belonged to Joy anymore. "Someday soon," Elias said softly, "you won't remember this part, just the splash when you dive back in." She leaned her head against his arm. No words, just trust. Neighbors passed, offering awkward glances. Some looked guilty, others curious, a few resentful, like the incident had inconvenienced them. A woman Elias recognized from board meetings, Teresa, approached slowly. She brushed a strand of hair away from Lily's face and whispered, "What happened yesterday wasn't right. If you need someone to confirm what I saw, I will." For the first time today, Elias allowed himself a small nod of gratitude. Witnesses mattered. "Thank you," he said. Her husband tugged her away quickly, anxious about being seen talking to the problem family. Teresa left with an apologetic look over her shoulder. That was enough. One witness could become two. Two could become five. A crowd might pretend to ignore suffering, but someone always heard the scream. As evening neared, Elias stood, lifting Lily again. "Let's get dinner started," he said gently. She nodded, forehead against his chest. They went inside, and he prepared a simple meal. Lily ate slowly, still tired. Once she was settled in bed early, Elias returned to his files. He opened the footage again, not to watch the pain, but to map the truth. He rewound to seconds before the assault. He tracked Miranda's approach, the board members' proximity, the lifeguards' inaction. Every failure layered into a chain of accountability. He was no longer just a father seeking justice. He was an investigator, building a case. And tomorrow, Miranda would learn exactly how badly she had underestimated the man she tried to crush. Elias woke before sunrise, long before the gated community stretched out of its curated comfort. He brewed coffee silently, pacing the living room as the first light spilled over manicured lawns outside. Today wasn't about anger. Today was about proof finding daylight. Lily would sleep for another hour, and this quiet window belonged to preparation. He plugged the USB into his laptop again and scrubbed through the footage with fresh eyes. He slowed each frame around the assault, pausing at the exact moment Miranda's fingers tightened. The audio captured her voice clearly. Kids in rentals need written clearance. Elias zoomed in on her expression, calculated disgust. He captured screenshots, marked timestamps, compiled a chronological sequence of the encounter. Every scream, every command, every witness frozen like stone. Then he added the medical photos from the urgent care visit, before and after cleaning the wound. Clean documentation beat emotional storytelling every time. He began drafting his official complaint to the state attorney general's office. No theatrics, no insults, just detail stacked on detail. He stitched facts together like threads forming a noose. Lily woke to the soft scrape of his chair. "Morning," she whispered. He shut the laptop halfway, softening his voice. "How's your head?" "It doesn't hurt as much." She rubbed the bandaged area gently. Elias smiled and guided her to the table. He made breakfast again. Rituals are anchors for children in chaos. While she ate, he talked about school, cartoons, anything that reminded her normal still existed. She giggled once more. That tiny sound rebuilt a piece of him every time. After breakfast, he checked her bandage and packed her favorite stuffed otter in her backpack for comfort. "Doctor said you can rest today," he told her. "No school, we're taking it easy." She nodded gratefully. A soft knock at the door cut through the moment. Elias opened it to find Teresa, the neighbor who had dared speak up yesterday, holding a plate of muffins like a peace offering. Her eyes flickered to Lily and then lowered. "I saw Miranda bragging online," Teresa whispered. "She said renters should know their place. I saved screenshots, if you need them." Elias accepted the plate and her courage in the same motion. "I will, thank you." Her relief was immediate. She wasn't alone in her discomfort anymore. Subscribe if you believe every child deserves safety in their own neighborhood. After Teresa left, Elias saved her screenshots, passive-aggressive HOA posts, mocking emojis from board members, the wristband in trash photo attached with a laughing caption about teaching lessons. Every line of text piled weight onto the scale. By mid-morning, Lily was curled on the couch watching cartoons, while Elias sat nearby, sending carefully curated evidence packets to his FBI supervisor. He didn't disclose his personal stake. That came later. First, the speaker needed to be the agent, not the father. Subject, red flag, HOA embezzlement. Pattern documentation attached. He pressed send. A weight shifted. Moments later, a reply. Request additional confirmation, vendor quotes, and treasury signatures. Elias smirked slightly. "Already on it," he murmured to himself. He launched a background check on the landscaping. Company Lakeside Grove listed as contracted. Green Horizons. The website looked professional, but payment records linked to a private account under Greg Rafferty. No payroll, no staff. Just transfers labeled as maintenance fees, all routed directly into the treasurer's pocket. Elias copied the data, heart beating with cold satisfaction. Footsteps approached outside, Miranda's familiar clicking heels. Elias peeked through the window. She marched toward the clubhouse, loud and entitled, already preparing some new decree. He waited until she disappeared inside. Then he scooped Lily into the car. "We're dropping by the station," he said, "just to get a copy of yesterday's filed notes." Lily blinked nervously but nodded, clutching her otter. The police station wasn't far, but it felt like entering another world, one where law pretended to be neutral. Dana wasn't on duty at the front desk. That helped. The officer present reviewed the urgent care report and logged it officially into the system. "We'll need to interview you both," he said, looking at Lily's wound. "This wasn't minor." "Agreed," Elias replied. Outside, Lily paused again as they passed the playground. Children ran freely. She watched them with longing, as though joy now required permission. Elias crouched to meet her gaze. "You didn't do anything wrong," he repeated softly. She whispered back, "I know, but it still feels like I did." Elias swallowed the burn in his throat. "That's because the wrong person acted like she was right." He lifted her into the car again and drove home. Along the way, trucks delivered fresh flowers to the clubhouse garden. Money flowed visibly here, lavish renovation. While HOA dues ballooned, fraud glimmered beneath pretty petals. Back at home, Lily curled up with her otter again. Elias returned to his laptop, cross-referencing HOA bank statements with Green Horizons invoices. The numbers didn't just hint at embezzlement, they screamed. Hundreds of thousands siphoned away. He gathered digital files into a single encrypted folder labeled LG HO Fraud Core. Then he clicked record and filmed his screen while scrolling through documents, all with timestamp overlays. No one could claim forgery later. His phone chimed. Supervisor again. This case meets criteria. As soon as on-site confirmation and physical documents are secured, asset seizure may proceed. On-site confirmation. Board documents. He looked toward the clubhouse. He knew exactly how to get them. But first, he checked on Lily again. She slept soundly, cheek resting on the stuffed otter. He brushed her hair back gently without waking her. Her peace was why this case mattered. Miranda thought she had enforced a rule. What she'd actually done was give him the acceleration a cold case always needed. Elias put the laptop to sleep, pocketed his phone, and grabbed a screwdriver from the drawer. Nothing violent, nothing that implied force, just a tool a maintenance worker might carry. Tonight, he didn't need a badge or a gun. He needed fingerprints, paper trails, and the arrogance of people who never bothered locking cabinets they believed only they were allowed to open. He took one last look at Lily, sleeping safe. Then he stepped into the evening air, walking toward the clubhouse with steady purpose, ready to pull the first thread that would unravel the entire empire built on stolen dues and cruelty. Elias walked toward the clubhouse with his stride slow and unthreatening, like someone who simply belonged there. That was the key to quiet infiltration. Look like you're doing what you're supposed to be doing. No aggression, no hesitation, no glancing around as if you were afraid to be caught. He slipped into the side entrance used by maintenance staff. His fingertips traced the keycard he carried, a generic access pass given to residents for laundry rooms and gym storage. It didn't officially grant permission here, but the lock beeped green anyway. Poor security wasn't just an ethical failure. It was an investigator's dream. Inside, the hallway smelled faintly of chlorine and industrial cleaner. Ceiling vents hummed overhead. The board's office was 2 doors down, a space the HOA treated like a shrine to their authority. The frosted glass windows boasted a gold decal reading, "Authorized personnel only." It was laughable. Elias had investigated billion-dollar crime syndicates with better locks than this. He paused and checked his phone. Lily was still asleep. He breathed out slowly, centering himself. No fear, no rush, just precision. The door opened with a gentle turn of the handle, completely unlocked. Arrogance made people careless. The room smelled of paper, perfume, and power. Filing cabinets lined the left wall. On the right stood a sleek printer, the kind that logged every job for accounting. A corkboard hung above it, crammed with flyers for dues reminders, board meetings, and new regulations. Policies Miranda used like weapons. Elias pulled out his screwdriver, not to break anything, but to help pry tight drawers silently. He moved to the second cabinet, labeled Treasurer Records. His pulse slowed, every muscle focused. He pulled the top drawer open. Rows of envelopes, printed checks, vendor payments, reimbursement forms, all bearing Greg Rafferty's signature. Elias photographed each document without removing them, ensuring nothing looked disturbed. He focused on patterns, monthly payments to Green Horizons, large transfers labeled as equipment upgrades, but no proof of equipment. One file caught his eye, a stack of receipts for luxury hotel stays and restaurant bills in New York, far from any HOA concern, dues paying for board vacations. He snapped photos of those too. Next drawer, bank routing slips. Elias's breath hitched slightly as he recognized repeating numbers. Greg wasn't creative in his laundering. The same. Account constantly pulled funds in varying disguises. Elias noted routing and account numbers, uploaded them to his encrypted drive, and kept going. Then he found something more damning. An unfiled audit warning from a consulting company hired last year. The document listed concerns about missing funds. Greg had signed it, then shoved it in a drawer rather than show the board. Elias scanned it, photographed every page, and saved it like treasure. The case was no longer a suspicion. It was a full-scale federal crime. Voices echoed outside the hallway, footsteps and laughter. Elias closed the drawer quickly and reached for the office door, slipping into the small service corridor behind it. Through the crack, he saw Officer Dana and Miranda entering the office. Miranda's heels clicked first, demanding attention. "Everything will stay exactly where it belongs," Miranda said. "We can't have renters thinking they can call the shots. I'll handle him myself." Dana frowned. "He asked for the footage. Shouldn't you show—" Miranda cut her off with a dismissive gesture. "I don't justify myself to nobodies. Once I evict them, this will blow over." Evict! There it was, her next move. Elias steadied his breathing. He listened closely. Dana shifted uncomfortably. "Still, dragging a child— Rules are rules," Miranda snapped. "And if the police don't support us, I'll speak to the chief tomorrow." Dana fell silent. Elias closed his eyes for a second, not out of defeat, but resolve. Some people refused humility so fiercely they drowned in their own self-worship. He reopened them, eyes cold. Miranda rummaged behind the desk. Papers rustled. Then her tone changed, smug and satisfied. "Found it. I'll deliver the notice tonight. They'll have 72 hours before we revoke their lease." Dana murmured something Elias couldn't hear clearly, likely a concern swallowed too quickly to matter. Moments later, the door closed behind them. Elias waited, counting seconds, ensuring the air stilled again. When he emerged, he avoided touching surfaces they did. He collected the last set of files, internal financial statements the HOA never meant for residents to see. He found line items labeled miscellaneous, random spikes of thousands with no explanation. It was everything he needed. He slid his phone into his pocket, leaving the room exactly as he found it. He exited the clubhouse through the same service door, only glancing back once, not fear, just to confirm no one saw him. Stars had already punctured the sky. Street lamps lit the quiet neighborhood, where secrets hid behind hedges. Elias walked home with silence in his steps and war in his chest. When he entered, Lily was still sleeping on the couch, curled around that little otter. Watching her breathe steadied him more than any weapon ever had. He kneeling beside her, ensuring the bandage stayed secure. He whispered, "You're safe." She didn't wake, but her hand twitched as if she heard him. He stood, grabbed his laptop, and transferred all photos into the fraud folder. Then he added a new label, "Confirmed Asset Theft by HOA Officials." His supervisor responded almost instantly. "Proceed to Phase 2. Field confirmation via authorized witness. Preparing seizure warrant request." Elias stared at those words. Phase 2 would flip the power dynamic. Miranda would soon learn something terrifying. The quiet maintenance-looking dad she dismissed wasn't a threat she could intimidate away. He was the federal hammer she accidentally summoned. Elias closed the laptop, brushed Lily's hair gently, and smiled for the first time since the assault. Morning returned too quickly. Sunlight crept across the living room floor, reaching Lily's blanket before Elias lifted his head from where he'd fallen asleep sitting upright beside her. His neck ached, but he didn't mind. She was safe, and that mattered more than rest ever could. He rose quietly, stretched the stiffness from his spine, and brewed coffee without turning on any loud appliances that might wake her. He had one focus today: build the public stage. Not revenge, just visibility. His victory strategy depended on the downfall happening where the truth couldn't be hidden behind HOA newsletters or smug texts. The town needed to see what lived beneath Lakeside Grove's polished surface. Lily stirred, blinking heavily as she sat up, with the otter clutched to her chest. "Does it look better?" she asked, pointing to the bandage. "Let's check," Elias said gently. He peeled it back slowly. The swelling had eased, though the redness still traced Miranda's violence. Lily stared at her reflection in a handheld mirror, lips tightening. She wasn't scared now. She was angry, quietly angry. "You're healing," Elias assured her. "Every day, it gets better." She nodded, letting him rewrap the bandage. When she finished eating her breakfast, she asked if they could step outside for a walk. Elias hesitated at first. Miranda was unpredictable, but then he agreed. Fear shouldn't become Lily's new routine. He guided her onto the sidewalk, staying close. The pool shimmered in the distance. She didn't look at it. Instead, she stared at flowers lining the clubhouse path. That was progress, small but real. Miranda emerged from the clubhouse again, sunglasses perched atop her perfectly styled hair. She spotted them immediately and smiled like a politician ready to spin tragedy into inconvenience. In her hand, she held a stack of envelopes. Eviction notices, likely one for them. Elias shielded Lily subtly as Miranda strutted over. "Good morning," Miranda chirped, the fake sweetness making the air colder. "I've decided to solve your situation. You'll receive an official notice today requiring you to vacate your unit. You have 72 hours before your lease privileges are revoked and your access cards disabled." Lily tensed, clutching Elias's arm. He didn't flinch. "And the reason for eviction?" Miranda shrugged like it was obvious. "Hostile behavior, attempting to incite trouble among residents, abuse of facilities." His voice remained calm. "You assaulted a child." Miranda's eyes narrowed, but her smirk widened. "You can try to spin that story however you want. But here, rules protect the community, and the community agrees you don't belong." Neighbors watched from a distance, uncomfortable witnesses again. Some whispered, some avoided eye contact altogether. Elias took note of every one of them. Fear had turned them into silent spectators, but fear could also turn to regret when truth hit daylight. Miranda shoved the envelope into his hand. "Don't make this harder than it needs to be." She leaned down, addressing Lily with a venomous sweetness. "And darling, maybe next time you'll follow the rules." Elias stepped between them so fast she blinked. "Stay away from her!" Miranda scoffed. "Do whatever you think you can, but in 72 hours, you'll be gone." She turned sharply and walked away with the arrogance of someone who believed she'd already won. Elias knelt to Lily, blocking her view of Miranda's retreat. "Nothing is ending," he said firmly. "Nothing here is stronger than you. Or us." Her breathing steadied, and she squeezed his hand again. They returned home. Elias placed the eviction notice flat on the kitchen table, photographed it, uploaded it to his evidence folder, and marked it appropriately. Retaliation, following, documented, assault. Each document was another rope tightening around the Rafferty's little empire. A message buzzed on his phone. "Supervisor, ready for public staging. Meeting must occur with maximum witnesses. You provide the time." Elias's jaw set. He glanced at Lily resting with her otter again. Public staging meant exposure. Exposure meant justice. Miranda thought she summoned power. She'd actually scheduled her own fall. Later in the afternoon, Elias returned to his role as every day in this neighborhood. Quiet, invisible. He walked the perimeter, noting the perfect landscaping, the expensive vehicles, the glimmering pool where laughter echoed again, as if yesterday had been erased. People in wealthier places love erasing other people's pain, as long as it makes the view nicer. A neighbor waved his direction. Stan, from 2 houses down. He approached hesitantly. "Hey, my wife told me what happened. If you need someone to confirm, I saw the whole thing. I just didn't react, didn't know what to do." Elias didn't condemn him. Fear makes cowards. Truth makes allies. "Thank you," he said. "I'll reach out when the time comes." Stan nodded, relief washing over his face. Witness count 3. That evening, Elias sat on the floor beside Lily again, watching her draw animals with crayons, the otter always appearing somewhere, in the pages. He praised her art softly. It helped her remember joy. When she finally fell asleep, Elias leaned against the couch and reopened the eviction notice. Miranda's signature sat bold at the bottom, ink thick with entitlement. He photographed it again, ensuring no angle was left undocumented. His phone vibrated one more time. "Supervisor. Seizure warrant in process. Provide opportunity for live confirmation. Your discretion." "Live confirmation," Elias murmured. "A public HOA meeting. Miranda already promised to hold one tomorrow to announce their eviction. She'd called her own execution." He closed the laptop and checked Lily's breathing. Tomorrow, her world would shift again. Not with fear, but with justice. Miranda wanted to prove Elias didn't belong. Tomorrow, she'd learn this was his arena. And she had already stepped into it. Morning brought a brittle silence to Lakeside Grove, the kind that settles over a place right before a storm tears vanity from its pedestal. Elias woke early again, checking Lily first. She slept deeply, her little otter tucked beneath her chin. The swelling looked better, though the bruise beneath still bore the memory of Miranda's grip. He brewed coffee, sat at the table, and stared at the eviction notice as if memorizing its arrogance. Today was the day Miranda would try to publicly humiliate them. Today was also the day she'd discover she had misunderstood what humiliation really meant. Elias sent a single short message to his supervisor. Meeting today. Full attendance expected. One reply came back. Team en route. Wait for signal. He exhaled, slow and measured. The board thought they owned the narrative. They didn't realize Elias had been writing the script since the moment Miranda laid hands on his daughter. Lily shuffled into the kitchen, hair messy and eyes softer than yesterday. "Can I have pancakes again?" she asked with a little smile. "Always," Elias answered. He made them quickly. Extra syrup, shaped like stars this time. She giggled, and that giggle fortified him more than caffeine ever could. After breakfast, Lily curled up with her crayons. Elias checked his watch. The HOA meeting was scheduled for noon. They had time. He reviewed his folder one more time. Photos, screenshots, bank statements, the medical report, the eviction notice. Everything lined up like dominoes craving the first push. Lily looked up at him, sensing his focus. "Dad, will today be okay?" He crouched, taking her hands gently. "Today is the start of making things right," he said. "You just stay close to me, okay?" She nodded and hugged him. By midday, neighbors in designer outfits began gathering at the clubhouse like curious spectators arriving for a show. Elias dressed simply, plain shirt, worn shoes, just the humble man they believed him to be. He lifted Lily into the passenger seat and drove the short stretch to join the audience. The clubhouse entrance buzzed with, whispers, judgment hovering like humidity. The board sat at a long table on a raised platform, Miranda at the center like she owned gravity. Greg beside her looked smug, suit jacket too expensive for someone supposedly managing a simple neighborhood budget. Miranda tapped the microphone. "Residents, please take your seats," she sang with polished cruelty. "Today we discuss necessary disciplinary actions against the tenants of Unit 14, who have repeatedly disrupted the harmony of our community." Elias spread Lily's small blanket over her lap as they sat in the front row. He held her hand for reassurance, not that she needed it as much now. Miranda smiled with theatrical sadness. "We value safety here, but when certain individuals insist on violating procedures, we must—" She stopped mid-sentence. Because Elias stood up. The room stilled. Miranda blinked. "You'll have your chance to speak after the board decides." "I'm speaking now," he said, voice calm enough to unsettle. Some residents shifted. Others leaned forward. "Yesterday," Elias continued, "the HOA president physically assaulted my daughter." He angled Lily slightly so everyone could see the bandage. Gasps rose like a wave. Some residents pressed hands to mouths. A few stared at Miranda in disbelief. Miranda's face tightened. "This is exactly the kind of exaggeration Elias lifted his phone, clicking a button. The projector behind Miranda flickered on. Footage filled the wall. Miranda dragging Lily by her hair. Lily screaming. Miranda shouting rules over a child's agony. Silence hit the room like a dropped stone. Miranda sprang to her feet. "That footage is restricted?" "No," Elias said, eyes locked on hers. "It's evidence." Neighbors murmured. Someone near the back whispered, "I saw that. I didn't know what to do." Officer Dana, present again out of obligation, looked sick as the audio hit. "Renters don't get privileges," Miranda's recorded voice echoed, each word a confession. Miranda sputtered. "Where did you even get—" But Elias wasn't done. He clicked again. Projected now. Screenshots of Miranda's mocking posts, the wristband in the trash, laughing emojis she thought made her powerful. Neighbors looked horrified. Teresa, seated near the front, stood up. "I witnessed it too," she said shakily. There was no justification for hurting that child. None. Stan raised a hand next. "I saw everything. We just froze. We won't freeze again." Miranda's mask cracked. Panic flashed in her eyes. Elias stepped aside from the projector beam, revealing the final line of evidence on screen. Green Horizons transactions and unreported HOA funds routing into Greg's personal accounts. Greg lurched forward. "Turn that off!" Elias didn't move. "No." Then he raised his voice, not loud, but authoritative. the kind of tone only a law-trained investigator could wield. This isn't about a pool. It's about a community exploited by greed and ruled by fear. Whispers turned into murmurs, murmurs into outrage. Subscribe now if you think every bully deserves to face consequences. The doors clicked open behind them. Uniformed federal agents stepped inside in a clean, silent line. The room erupted. Miranda spun, eyes wide, voice shrill. You can't just walk in here." But she was already backing away, heels scraping against the polished floor. Elias didn't turn to look at the agents. He didn't need to. He already knew the timing, down to the breath. He lifted his phone to his ear. "This is Elias Ward. Confirmation of criminal activity established. Seizure authorization confirmed." Miranda froze, face draining of color. "Elias," she whispered, fear replacing arrogance for the first time. He looked at her gently, almost politely. "You should have left my daughter alone." Agents moved forward, badges raised. The era of Miranda's rules ended in that exact heartbeat. Chaos erupted through the clubhouse like a sudden storm ripping through glass. Chairs scraped, people stood, voices tangled with fear, shock, and the realization that what they had ignored was now impossible to look away from. Federal agents stepped forward in a precise line, splitting the aisle with efficiency born from endless arrests. They weren't loud. They didn't need to be. Their silence was the loudest authority in the room. Miranda stumbled back as though trying to outrun her own exposure. "This is a mistake," she shouted. "You can't do this. I am the HOA president and—" One of the agents flashed his badge directly in her face. "You are under investigation for multiple counts of embezzlement, wire fraud, and assault of a minor." Her voice cracked. "Assault? That child? She—" The projector behind her replayed Lily's scream. Every syllable shattered Miranda's denial into pieces she couldn't gather fast enough. Greg tried to bolt. He grabbed the stack of paperwork in front of him and turned to run, but another agent intercepted, pinning his arms behind his back with practiced ease. Greg sputtered useless protests, red-faced and sweating. "I didn't take anything. It was an accounting error." Elias watched without satisfaction, without gloating. Justice doesn't require theatrics. It only requires truth. Officer Dana, caught between roles, stared at Miranda with disbelief. She had followed Miranda's orders for months, maybe years. But now the power dynamic had flipped, and she didn't know where to stand. Her voice, small and shaken, rose just once. "Mrs. Rafferty, you told me the family was lying." Miranda spun on her. "Shut up! You work for us." "No," Elias corrected gently. "She works for the law." Dana's expression stiffened as she realized he was right. Two agents took Miranda by the arms. Her knees buckled slightly as they guided her down the platform steps. She looked to the gathering crowd, not for help, but for validation. But the neighbors she once commanded now recoiled, unwilling to be associated with her downfall. Lily squeezed Elias's hand tighter as Miranda was led past them, her bandaged head tilted upward, eyes locked on the woman who hurt her. Miranda froze for 1 second, just one. In Lily's gaze, she didn't find fear anymore. She found strength. Miranda's face crumpled into something almost unrecognizable, not remorse, just the stunned realization that she was no longer the powerful one. Greg's voice shook, desperate. "This has to be some misunderstanding." His words went unanswered as agents escorted him, wrists already bound by cold metal. Neighbors watched in stunned silence. Teresa stepped forward slowly. "She thought she could do anything because we let her," she whispered, almost to herself. Her husband nodded behind her, guilt softening his posture. Elias turned toward the residents, eyes calm. "This community deserved better," he said quietly. "Now it will get better." Whispers rippled through the room. Some residents stared at Elias, the way you look at someone you finally understand. Others looked ashamed, remembering every time they had averted their eyes. A trembling voice broke the hush. "Lily," Teresa said, kneeling near the girl. "I'm so sorry we didn't help you sooner." Lily blinked, uncertain how to respond, then took a tiny step closer to Elias, clinging to the safety in his presence. Dana walked toward them then, her steps slow. "Mr. Ward," she swallowed, guilt weighing on her. "If you need anything from the department, you come straight to me. I should have stepped in the moment I saw what she did. I'm sorry. Elias nodded once. Then help ensure this is handled properly. Start there. Dana nodded firmly, finding confidence again, now that justice had a spine instead of fear. The agents paused before leading the Raffertys out. Elias stepped closer. Not confrontational, just a final acknowledgement of the choices she made. Miranda searched his face for vengeance, accusation, something she could use as fuel for her spite, but he gave her none of that. His voice was steady, quiet enough only she could hear. You hurt a child. You abused power. That's what brought you here. Miranda tried to speak, but the words died in her throat. The agents guided her out the double doors. Once the doors shut, the air felt lighter. The oppressive weight of her presence lifted like a toxic fog. Elias knelt beside Lily again. It's done, he murmured. She nodded softly, but her grip on his hand didn't loosen. Trust takes longer to heal than wounds do. Board members who remained stood rigid in fear. One older woman in a silk blouse looked near tears. We had no idea, she said shakily. Elias didn't correct her, though he knew some of them had known. Silence was complicity, but today wasn't the day for that fight. Today was for Lily. We'll reorganize, another board member stammered. You're welcome to help guide the process if you want. Elias glanced at Lily, then at the crowd. I'm not here for power, he said. Just safety. Murmurs of agreement rose. He stood and lifted Lily gently into his arms. The scene around them still buzzed with conversation, but he didn't linger. His role in the spectacle was finished. Truth had worn its badge today. Outside, the sunlight greeted them like a new beginning. The air smelled cleaner. Lily rested her head on his shoulder, exhaling a tiny breath of relief. She looked back at the clubhouse one last time, not in fear, but in triumph. Can we go to the pool again soon? She whispered. Elias smiled, just a small tug of the lips, but full of promise. Yes, he said. Soon. They walked home, hand in hand, the echo of justice trailing behind them. And as they stepped through the door of Unit 14, Elias knew the next chapter wasn't about survival anymore. It was about healing. The door shut behind them with a soft click, and for the first time in days, the silence of their home felt peaceful instead of suffocating. Elias set Lily down, and she immediately curled up on the couch with her otter, as though reclaiming the comfort she'd lost. He knelt beside her, brushing back a stray strand of hair from her forehead. It's really over? She asked, voice hushed, unsure if justice had truly replaced fear. It's over, he answered. But there are a few more steps before the dust settles. She nodded, trusting that answer completely, and turned her attention to the TV remote. Cartoons flickered on, filling the room with familiar colors and laughter. Elias watched the way her shoulders eased. The tension she'd carried, the child-sized weight of trauma, was slowly dissolving. He allowed himself a moment to sit in that calm. One breath. Two. Then he stood. Justice never ends with the first takedown. He moved to the table and opened his laptop. Even though Miranda and Greg had been let out in cuffs, their crime still needed full confirmation through formal documentation and community statements. The seizure warrants now in process would freeze accounts, impound assets, and secure every dollar they stole, but only airtight evidence would ensure they never saw a loophole big enough to crawl through. Emails pinged into his inbox. Supervisor, excellent work. Full seizure review underway. Requesting post-event resident impact statements. State attorney liaison. Need legal confirmation of injury, plus witness accounts. Send directly. Elias responded with calm efficiency, attaching everything: medical files, time-stamped footage, neighbor testimony he'd already collected. He labeled each document professionally. No emotion, no embellishment. Facts could speak louder than shouting ever could. When he finished, he returned to Lily. She had drawn a picture on the back of an old envelope, her and the otter swimming in a pool, sunlight bright above them. No fear in the drawing, no villain lurking nearby, just a little girl reclaiming her world. That's beautiful, he whispered. She smiled shyly. That's what it will look like again, right? It will, he said. Exactly like that. He placed the drawing on the fridge, securing it with a magnet shaped like a seashell. a reminder of what this battle was always about. A knock rattled the door then, a heavy one. Lily glanced over, startled. Elias approached calmly and opened it. Two residents stood outside, awkward and apologetic. The older woman from the board, silk blouse, slightly trembling hands, and her husband. "We want to talk," she said gently. Elias stepped aside. "Come in." They did, eyes lowered, shoulders sagging with remorse that seemed real rather than performative. "We failed you," the woman said, "and we failed your daughter." Her voice quivered. "We should have stopped her. We should have spoken sooner. But Miranda, she scared people into silence, and we listened to convenience instead of conscience." Elias didn't offer comfort, not yet. "Truth is louder than fear," he said. "It only needed someone willing to use it." The woman nodded. "We want to fix this. The board will be restructured. We want you to stay. And, if you're willing, we want you to help oversee the new system, transparency, accountability, safety." Elias shook his head gently. "I don't want authority. I want stability. For my daughter, for every family here." Her husband cleared his throat. "Then help us make that the rule, not the exception." His eyes flicked to Lily. "We'll put it in writing. Repair her trust in this place by making it worthy of it." Elias considered. Leadership wasn't something he chased, but protection was something he would always provide. If stepping into a guiding role meant no one here would ever have to fear the board again, maybe that was worth his time. "We'll discuss terms," he said. "But first, the children need to feel this community is theirs again." Relief softened the couple's posture. "We'll organize a neighborhood gathering," the woman added quickly. "No speeches, no policies, just community, maybe at the pool." She glanced at Lily. "A fresh start where it all went wrong." Lily perked up at that. "A pool party?" Her voice held cautious hope. "Yes," the woman said warmly. "A pool party." Elias nodded once, slowly. It wasn't forgiveness, but it was a step toward it. After they left, Lily crawled into his lap. "Can I swim again today?" He hesitated. The fear still lived inside him, coiled tight like memory. But courage wasn't the absence of fear. It was teaching a child how to rise above it. "Not today," he said softly. "Tomorrow. The water will still be there." She leaned into him, satisfied by the promise. Later that afternoon, Elias walked outside alone, pacing the sidewalk where Miranda once walked like a tyrant. The sun dipped low, reflecting off the pool's surface. It looked peaceful, harmless. Innocent water, misused by a cruel person. Officer Dana stood near the entrance again, no longer guarding Miranda's lies, but contemplating the fallout. She turned when she saw Elias. "I filed a full report," she said. "I also added my personal statement. I let the wrong person lead me for too long." "They bullied you too," Elias replied. "You're stepping in the right direction now." Dana nodded, grateful. "If there's anything you need, I'll be here. The chief knows everything now." A breeze carried the faint scent of chlorine. Elias stared at the pool and thought about Lily's drawing. Justice had taken place indoors. Healing would happen out here. He returned home, double-checking Lily's bandage before tucking her in early. As she drifted to sleep, she murmured, "Tomorrow, I want to jump." He smoothed her hair back. "Tomorrow you jump," he whispered. He stood by the window a long time after she slept, watching the pool shimmer beneath the evening lights. Tonight, the water belonged to silence. Tomorrow, it would belong to her again. The night seeped quietly into morning, and Elias stood by the window as the first light crept over the neighborhood. The pool glimmered beneath the rise of dawn. No shouts, no chaos, no threats. Only stillness. He allowed his shoulders to relax for the first time since the incident, the weight of constant vigilance finally lifting in measured breaths. Lily woke soon after, rubbing her eyes and holding her otter close. "Is today the day?" she whispered, voice trembling not with fear, but with anticipation. "Yes," Elias said gently. "Today you get to take your pool back." She smiled, a real one, the kind that stretched all the way into joy. He helped her dress in her bright blue swimsuit, making sure the bandage on her scalp stayed secure beneath a soft swimmer's cap. The injury still shadowed her movement, but her heart seemed lighter. He brushed her hair tenderly, careful not to disturb healing skin. When they stepped outside, neighbors were already gathering near the pool, carrying coolers, pool toys, and fold-out chairs. Children ran ahead, the air buzzing with an optimism no HOA rule could ever manufacture. Colorful floats drifted across the water, tiny symbols of a new start. Teresa waved them over with enthusiastic warmth. "We saved you a spot," she said, patting a lounge chair near the shallow end. Stan nodded beside her, face flushed with apology. He didn't speak aloud. Lily looked up at Elias. He nodded. She stepped forward, timid at first, toes testing the warm tiles. Then she looked at the water. For a moment, her breath shortened, remembering fingers in her hair, the sting of panic. Elias lowered himself beside her, crouching so she only saw him, not the past. "You're the bravest girl I know," he whispered. "You get to decide how this story ends." She stared at the rippling blue surface, hands clutched tight. Then, with a small but determined exhale, she took a step forward and dipped one foot in. Warm water kissed her skin. Seconds later, she slid in fully, hands gripping the ladder before letting go. She floated, supported again by the element that had once terrified her. Laughter bubbled from her lips. Elias felt his heart unclench. Neighbors clapped, quiet at first, then fuller, as if they were applauding courage they'd never displayed themselves. He let Lily enjoy the moment without any spotlight forced on her. This wasn't about them. This was her victory. Officer Dana approached Elias from behind. "I spoke to the federal team this morning," she said softly. "The warrants are active, accounts frozen, property lines secured. Their vehicles will be picked up this afternoon." Elias nodded. "Good." Dana glanced at Lily, who was now splashing gently. "That little girl didn't deserve any of this. I'm glad you fought back." "She fought too," he corrected. "She survived what someone tried to take from her." Dana swallowed, eyes glossing with guilt she no longer ran from. "You set something big in motion here. People will remember it." "They should," Elias said. "Not for me, for the next child who might be a target." Behind them, the older board member, the one who had apologized the day before, walked up slowly. Anxiety lines hardened her face. "The community is rewriting the bylaws," she said. "Transparency replaced by oversight, and background checks for board officers. We want you involved." Elias shook his head gently. "You don't need me to run anything, just to keep each other accountable." He looked at Lily again, her head breaching the water like a tiny triumphant dolphin. "I'm staying focused on what matters most. Then we'll follow your example," the woman said. "Quiet strength is sometimes louder than leadership." She smiled softly before stepping away. Elias exhaled and let the praise float past him like an unused balloon. He didn't care about being anyone's hero. He only cared that no one would ever wield power here like a weapon again. Lily swam to the edge, cheeks flushed with pride. "Dad, watch this!" she giggled. She dunked beneath the surface and popped back up, laughing as little droplets scattered into the sunlight. Elias crouched down. "Amazing! I'm so proud of you." A cheer rose from the pool as neighbors toasted lemonade cups. The community had changed overnight, not because Elias demanded it, but because truth had demanded it. His phone vibrated, a message from his supervisor. "Formal closing of seizure scheduled for 4 p.m. Victims will receive restitution review notices. Expect the public transparency filing by end of week." Elias typed his reply with firm simplicity. "Acknowledged. Thank you." He slid the phone into his pocket and returned his focus to the water. Lily swam again, letting joy rewrite her muscles' memory. She climbed out once, patting droplets from her arms, and sat beside him on the pool's edge, feet kicking gently in the water. "I'm not scared anymore," she said. "I know," Elias replied. "You beat the fear." "And Miranda?" Lily's voice softened. "Miranda answered to the law," he said. "But what she can't ever take from you is this moment." Lily leaned into him, small head resting against his arm. The sun warmed their backs. The water kept whispering welcome. After a long stretch of peace, Lily asked, "Can we come back every day?" Elias smiled. "Every day you want." He watched her hop back into the water, her laughter spilling brighter each time. Everything around them, the shimmer of the pool, the hum of reunited community, The weight of justice felt like a reset button pressed firmly, not erasing the past, just reclaiming the future. Later, as clouds drifted lazily above and Lily splashed with her new friends, Elias stood beside the pool's edge. Neighbors greeted him with understanding nods, not pity or fear, respect, earned not by authority but by action. He let the moment settle deep inside him. The battle was won. The healing had begun. And from now on, this pool would be more than water. It would be the place where his daughter learned that monsters lose and survivors swim. As the sun dipped lower, staining the pool water gold, the laughter slowly thinned. Families packed up towels, folding chairs clicked shut, and the energy of celebration mellowed into a comforting hum. Lily swam one last circle, slow, graceful, before climbing out with a triumphant smile. Her hair clung damp to her temples beneath the cap, but her spirit glowed unaffected by any bruise. Elias wrapped a towel around her and held her close while she giggled at the way he exaggerated his proud grin. "You did it," he whispered. "I did," she said, resting her head on his shoulder. "Can we stay until the lights turn on?" He looked at the string lights twinkling above the shallow end, blinking alive one by one. "We can stay as long as you're happy." She nodded firmly, content. The pool deck emptied, leaving only a few neighbors lingering by the tables, Teresa, Stan, and a new wave of parents who smiled without hesitation now. Every face that once turned away from pain now turned toward this victory instead. And though apologies could not erase silence, accountability had finally replaced fear. Officer Dana approached, hands in her pockets, uniform looking less like a symbol of misplaced loyalty and more like an oath renewed. "The Raffertys have been transferred to the county facility," she said quietly. "They'll face charges in the morning. Financial Crimes Unit is already digging further. Looks like this goes years back." Elias nodded, absorbing the update without triumph. Justice existed because someone had to demand it, not because someone had to enjoy it. Dana hesitated. "I owe you both more than an apology. You pulled me back to my job's purpose, protecting people, not pleasing power." "You stepped up," Elias said. "That's what matters now." She breathed out, relieved. "The chief wants to meet Lily tomorrow, to thank her for being brave enough to tell the truth." Lily peeked from behind Elias's arm. "Do chiefs have badges bigger than the others?" Dana smiled. "Much bigger." Lily grinned, imagining oversized badges like movie props. Dana waved goodbye and departed, boots fading as she walked toward her patrol car. The night deepened. Warm pool lamps glowed beneath the surface, casting soft ripples across Lily's feet. She dangled them playfully, humming to herself. Elias sat beside her, letting the cool tiles support his weight as adrenaline finally washed away. The fight had been long, but not a single moment of it had been wasted. The older board member returned with a clipboard. "We're drafting new guidelines," she said, voice carefully steady. "Resident representation on the board will be open to all, not just homeowners. Background vetting for officers, live-streamed meetings, everything transparent." Elias listened, though his eyes stayed on Lily. "Good," he said. "Make this place safe for every family." The woman nodded. "And we'd like to include a memorial note in the newsletter next week. Not a sad one. An acknowledgement that this pool stayed open for healing, not control." She paused, searching his reaction. "Your daughter made that possible." Lily splashed her toes proudly. The woman smiled and left them to their peace. Elias shifted to kneel beside his daughter again. "Ready to head home?" he asked. Lily shook her head. "Just one more minute. I want to remember this water." He let her have that minute. A minute that belonged entirely to her, to the courage she found under pressure, to the bravery she never asked to prove. The pool had once been the place she screamed. Now it was the place she reclaimed herself, breath by breath. When she finally stood, Elias wrapped her in the towel again, lifted her, and started toward their home. As they passed the gate, Lily looked back at the shimmering water. "That's where I learned I can be strong," she said softly. Elias kissed the top of her head. "Strength isn't what you show when you're not afraid," he said. "It's what you show when you are." She leaned against him, eyes beginning to close. "Then I guess I'm really strong," she murmured with a small, sleepy smile. "You are," he whispered. Inside Unit 14, he set her gently into bed. She hugged her otter tight, whispering something only it could hear. Maybe a thank you, maybe a promise, maybe both. Elias tucked the blanket around her, kissed her forehead, and watched her drift into peaceful sleep, dreams no longer interrupted by fear. He sat beside her for a while, listening to her steady breathing, the soft hum of the AC, and the quiet victory filling the room. He looked around at their small home, not perfect, not wealthy, but full of something stronger than any HOA title: family, courage, truth. Tomorrow would bring paperwork, statements, more interviews, but tonight belonged to healing. Tonight was the first night in days where he could stand guard without a battle plan in his mind. He looked at Lily's drawing on the fridge, the one showing her swimming happily beneath a bright sun, and for the first time since the attack, the picture looked like the truth again. He turned off the lights, leaving only the glow of the hallway lamp to guard her dreams. Then he whispered into the dark, "No one will ever take your peace again." He closed the door quietly. Justice had been served, and peace had a home again. Subscribe and don't miss our next story. Trust me, you'll feel it. And tell me in the comments, what injustice should we tackle next?